Hello, Year 5. Welcome to session 12 of Warhorse now. So, hopefully you're enjoying the book. I am. It's a good book. I'm not the biggest, I might have said this before, I'm probably said to you when choosing books, I'm not normally the biggest Michael Morpurgo fan. I think often they're a little bit, I don't know, dry, let's say. But I do quite like Warhorse, and I do quite like Kensuke's Kingdom. If you haven't read Kensuke's Kingdom, don't read it, because you read it in year 6. So it's a good book. It's a good book. Okay, so we're still doing author intent for today. So as made promise from yesterday, we were looking at a word that even me, Mr. Evident, the great Mr. Evident, did not know. Exactly, yeah, amazing. But yeah, as everyone, there's loads of words that people do not know, and we always come across them. But this was a real tricky one. I don't think I've ever heard of it. So I did listen to how it's pronounced. It's peremptory. Peremptory. If you go to Google, there's a little speech bubble next, like a little sound bubble next. So if you click on that, it'll play it for you. So it means insisting on immediate attention or obedience. So this is sort of one of these situations where actually someone acting with peremptory is about someone not saying to you, please can you do this because it would be really nice. It's about just telling them what they should be doing without being giving them any real reason. It's almost like bossy. It's almost like you need to follow this instruction straight away. So you could say, if you're in a war, the general gave the troops a peremptory order that they had to obey. Or I like this one. The prison guard spoke to the inmate in a peremptory tone. So that means he's talking to him as in like, you will obey me. You got no instruction. In a peremptory tone, the flight attendant told the passenger to either fasten a seatbelt or get off the plane. So it's very much like, do as I say right now. And here you've got a picture of a man looking at this lady, telling her to go and pick up more cans. And he might be like the recycling lady, man. And he's telling her, you go and pick up more cans that you've just thrown on the floor. And that's it. So people might be peremptory at the moment. If you go outside and you're not 2 meters away from them, you might be like, go and step 2 meters back. They're expecting you to follow their instructions straight away. Okay, so to remind you of the author intent skill, so it's about the idea that we need to understand why the author is choosing certain words, and the best way to often do this is to think about it from the perspective, from the viewpoint of us when we're writing. So when we write, how do we feel? So we choose certain words for certain reasons, so you then need to pretend when you're reading it, why do I think Roald Dahl in this picture maybe, or someone would choose a different word for that meaning. So, explore. He reached out and brushed my nose with his hand. There were tears filling his eyes. At that moment he became almost a likeable man to me. You'll be all right, son, he whispered to me. You won't understand, and neither will Albert, but unless I sell you I can't keep up with the mortgage, and will lose the farm. I've treated you bad. I've treated everyone bad. I know it, and I'm sorry for it. And he walked away from me, leading Zoe behind him. So what impact does "there were tears filling his eyes" have on the reader? And why has the author used this sentence? So if we're looking for the words, there was tears filling his eyes, you then got to think, what does that mean if you're saying something like that? So that sort of sentence, a phrase, really gives us the idea that it's a strong show don't tell, isn't it? It's saying, I want, you can tell that the character is upset. So why has the author used that sentence there? Because he wants us to feel that Albert's father is upset and he doesn't like the current situation. And he wishes he didn't have to do it, but he has to. So after chapters and chapters of Albert's father being seen as the bad guy, here, at this point, we suddenly see him maybe not being as bad as we actually thought he would be. So I think what the author's trying to do is make us think Albert's the father isn't that bad. He's trying to make us seem like he's actually quite human. So if you were writing this, what other words could you use to make that feeling? How could you make us feel as a reader, Arthur's father's really not that bad? So the other thing you could also do that I think is quite interesting when you think of author intent is, how could you change this? How could you take this phrase out and change it to another one to change the way the author's writing it. So in this sentence, in this section, he's selling Joey, isn't he? So what if we just completely changed it? We could change the different words the author uses. If we then changed it to Albert's father cackled with happiness. I'll never have to see you and your disgusting face again, he shouted to the horse. Go on, get out of here. Go on, leave my sight. That, the choice of words the author has made there, would give us the exact opposite feeling to what we were just talking about. So it's switching from one to the other. So that is the key thing, I think, to think about when it's these sort of things. It's how do we feel in this situation and how would we feel if it's like this? Okay, so it's about what impact do those words have on us and how we feel about the characters. I feel like I've done a lot of talking already, so you can read over these, see how quickly you can read it. You've got 30 seconds, 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Okay. Does anyone remember what the word cobble means? So I'd like to use it in a sentence. If you're not totally sure, you can always go back, but I'll give you a street, one word that will give you help. Street. Okay? Let's try and remember what the word cobble meant. So there's a little picture to help you. Okay, so like last time we had those paragraphs of information, here we've just got one paragraph. And what I want you to do is to summarise what's happened in this paragraph, okay? I don't want one sentence. This is made up of 3. I want you to break it down to the shortest amount that it give me some information that it's got from this. Don't just copy a sentence. Oh, it's 4 sentences, sorry. Okay, new words. Squadron. Okay, a unit of one of the armed forces, especially in Britain, the Air Force or the Navy. So a squadron is a part of the Navy or of the Air Force. So it's like a group of people, like a squad. So I think we get the word squad from squadron. So the idea of like a team, a group. Cluster. So a cluster of people, and it's a small group of them close together. So if you have these people, they're all clustered together, they're all squeezed together, so you can be close. You might get a cluster of grapes, so that's a group of grapes. A cluster comes from the Old English word clyster, which means bunch. It's interesting. So cluster, small, a group of something, so it could be people or something like that. Extravagant. So if you look at this, words within words, extra. So you've got the idea as an extravagant. An adjective that means expensive, excessive, or over the top. So it's something that is really impressive if something's extravagant. Okay, so you could say this room down here is extravagant. It doesn't need to be like this. It's got these big white pillars, lots of marble flooring, massive picture on the floor that looks like it could be made out of mosaic. Really expensive, over the top. The same with this one. Or the amount of things this woman's buying up here is extravagant. So it's over the top. Reminiscence. I can never say this word, I was practicing. So to talk or think or write about the past. Experiences that you remember with pleasure. So when you reminisce, that's when you're looking back and thinking about things that happen. So you might reminisce about days when you were back at school and what we were doing or something like that. So it's almost like remembering, but it's remembering fondly. Remembering fondly means like to like. So it's remembering something with enjoyment. So you might look at old photos and reminisce. Or when you're a lot older really in these pictures, and then you might all join up again in a small group and meet up somewhere and you might reminisce about how wonderful Mr. Everton was. Okay, right, here's your writing. What I'd like you to do is to read through it, and then we'll read through it together. So pause, please, and then we'll do it in a sec. Cool. Okay, let's go. With no rider to carry, I reached the kneeling riflemen first, and they scattered as I came upon them. I ran on until I found myself alone and away from the noise of the battle. I would never have stopped at all. I had not found Topthorn once more beside me, with Captain Stuart leaning over to gather up the reins before leading me back to the battlefield. "We have won," I heard it said, but horses lay dead and dying everywhere. More than a quarter of the squadron had been lost in that one action. It had all been so quick and so deadly. A cluster of grey uniformed prisoners had been taken, and they were huddled together now under the trees while the squadron regrouped and exchanged extravagant reminiscences of victory that had happened almost by accident rather than by design. I never saw Captain Nichols again, and that was a great and terrible sadness for me, for he had been a very kind and gentle man, and had cared for me as well as he had promised. As I was to learn, there were few enough such good men in the world. "He'd been proud of you, Joey," said Captain Stuart, as he led me back to the horse lines with Topthorne. "He'd have been proud of you, the way you'd kept going out there. He'd died leading that charge, and you finished it for him. He'd have been proud of you." So, when did he run until? So I think about when he was running. And normally, for that question, to be honest, when I was looking at it again, if I was you and I was thinking, "Oh, I can't remember when he was running," I think if it's the first question, it's normally somewhere near the top. They normally run in order, so the last question is somewhere further towards the bottom. So when did he run until? Again, it's when, so I want a time response as in, or something happening. So if we scan down, we find ran until. I found myself alone. When did he run until? He found himself alone. Where did Stuart take him? So you need to think about where Stuart was. So Stuart leaning over to gather up my reins before leading me back to the battlefield. Why was Joey surprised they had won? Okay, you can pause it and answer the question if needs be. Did it seem they planned for victory? Yes or no? And then what sentence tells you that? So that question is probably not very well written, that question actually. Maybe it needs to be slightly different. It needs to be, did their plan go exactly as, did their plan to win go exactly as you'd expect? What happened to Nichols? Why did the text answer? It's retrieval. What do you think will happen in the future text? Read the sentence, as I was to learn. So read the sentence here. As I was to learn, there are few enough such good men in the world. So what do you think the author's trying to do there? How does the author make us feel the book's going to go from this point onwards? Okay, so is he trying to make it sound like things are going to get better? Or are things going to get worse if he's saying, as I was to learn, there are few good men in this world? As I was to learn. What does that tell us? It tells us that it's probably going to get worse, doesn't it? Because he's saying he's going to learn in the future that there was not as many good people in the world as he thought there was. Okie doke. That's everything. I hope you follow your parents' instructions with peremptory. I can't say it again. Peremptory. And obedience. Anyway, that's everything, Squadron. Speak to you later. Bye-bye.